Anubis was not an ordinary dog, and it didn't take long for anyone who crossed paths with him to realize that. From the moment David and Anubis stepped into the vet's office, there was a palpable shift in the room. The vet's instinct was immediate. The dog wasn't just any animal. The vet didn't waste a second before contacting the police. Meanwhile, David sat in the waiting room, unaware of the growing storm around him. Little did he know, the dog he had taken home from a random seller at a farmer's market was about to change everything. David's first instinct was to grab Anubis and run. He didn't understand what was happening, but the unease in the room and the vet's strange behavior made him protective of his new companion. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Anubis so soon after bringing him into his life. However, before he could make his escape, the police arrived. The tension in the room escalated as David realized something was wrong. But what? And why was the vet so concerned? The truth began to unfold. David had never planned on buying a dog that day, but when he locked eyes with Anubis, something shifted. The dog's piercing yellow eyes and sharply pointed ears drew him in. The moment was brief, but in it, David knew he was taking Anubis home. The dog had been in the shelter for only a day, and the seller was eager to get rid of him. Everyone else had passed on the intimidating-looking dog, but David couldn't leave him behind, especially when he learned that Anubis was at risk of being euthanized. Despite the dog's unsettling appearance, David couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to rescue Anubis. But he hadn't discussed it with his wife, Monica, and he knew she would never approve of such an aggressive-looking dog, especially with their 4-year-old twins at home. Still, the thought of Anubis being put down was too much for David to bear. Without discussing it further, David bought the dog and took him home. When David arrived home, Monica's skeptical gaze met him at the door. David held his breath as the twins, Melvin and Motti, rushed to greet Anubis. To David's surprise, the dog remained calm, even as the boisterous children surrounded him. Anubis' stoic demeanor didn't change, no matter how the twins fawned over him. Monica's anger was palpable, but her fear of the dog's reaction faded as she saw the children's delight. Still, her concern about the dog's presence in the house, especially with their young children, lingered. David explained his decision, telling her how Anubis would have been euthanized if he hadn't stepped in. Monica's initial anger softened, though she still worried about the dog's unsettling calmness. She agreed to let him stay, but only if they supervised the twins closely whenever they were around the dog. Over the next month, Anubis proved to be more than just a guard dog. Despite his intimidating exterior, he was a calm and loyal companion to the family. The neighbors gave them wide berth, keeping their distance whenever they saw Anubis in the park. His presence alone made people uneasy, but to David and Monica, he was becoming part of the family. However, something about Anubis still didn't sit right with David. The dog's lack of excitement, the way he remained perfectly still and unbothered by anything, made David uneasy. He was beginning to wonder if there was something more to Anubis than he had first thought. David scheduled a vet appointment to have Anubis thoroughly checked out. But what started as a routine checkup soon turned into something David could never have predicted. At the crowded vet's office, Anubis's intimidating presence caused a stir. People were uncomfortable, and some even moved their pets away from him. When an employee approached David, asking him to take Anubis outside due to complaints, David was disappointed but complied. It was the first time he had ever been made to feel ashamed of his dog. But little did he know, this was only the beginning of the revelation. A few minutes later, a man in a long coat stopped as he passed by Anubis. Unlike others, he seemed unfazed by the dog's intimidating appearance. The man introduced himself as the senior veterinarian, and something about Anubis piqued his interest. He quickly ushered David inside, promising to speed up the appointment. The situation seemed odd, but David had no reason to refuse. Inside the office, the senior vet seemed preoccupied with Anubis, barely listening to David's concerns. After a few moments, the vet abruptly left, closing the door behind him. Minutes turned into what felt like hours, and David's frustration grew. When he finally tried the door handle, he found it locked. With his patience wearing thin, he kicked the door open. To his shock, the vet calmly explained that he had contacted the police, and they would soon arrive to explain what was happening. David's heart sank as the reality of the situation began to settle in. The police were after Anubis, but why? The senior vet revealed that Anubis wasn't just a regular dog. He was Zolo, a Mexican hairless dog with ties to ancient Aztec culture. Zolo had been stolen from a religious leader in Mexico City and was thought to have been put down. But somehow, he had ended up in the hands of a shady seller. Now, Anubis had to be returned to his rightful owner. Shocked and heartbroken, David realized that Anubis had a purpose beyond being a family dog. Though it was difficult to let him go, he knew it was the right thing to do. Anubis was returned to his rightful owner, and David received a reward for his part in bringing the dog back. The family later adopted a new dog, one with proper documentation, but David would always remember the stoic dog that had once been a part of their lives. The mysterious, calm presence of Anubis had changed everything for David, and he would never forget the strange dog that had walked into his life.